Welcome to the latest episode of the Elaborate Podcast. Joining me on this beautiful May day is Maria. How are you doing?
Very well, thank you. You?
Speak up.
Very well.
Speak up.
Fantastic. Can you hear me?
Well, the funny thing is, you're not going to keep that up for the rest of the podcast, so be prepared for non-verbal signs where I'm doing the hands up gesture to signify increased volume. But don't worry, this is a beautiful day. It is May 27th.
Well, it's March, but fair enough.
Did I say May? It's March.
Yeah, you said May, but I thought you meant because it's really nice and warm.
That was a mistake. I meant, of course, March instead of May. It's Easter week, Semana Santa, Holy Week.
Mm-hmm.
We've just been eating. You said a word, I can't say it.
Torrijas.
Yes, very moist, very wet. It's not very nice, it has to be said. Now, we were talking...
we went for the cheap.
We went for a cheap option. We were going to make it, but I don't want to deep fry things. Because last time we did that last week, you used all of my oil to do that.
And you're stingy.
Yes, more or less. So tomorrow I'm going back to the motherland for 3 days. I shall bring you back products of Irish renown. But before Ireland, there was a little bit of Spanish culture with that food. You know more about it than I do because you've made it for me before. All I know is that it's cinnamon and it's Eastery. But what's the significance of eating this in Semana Santa? Is it just Semana Santa, or is it throughout the Quaresma, no? The Lenten period in Spain?
Yeah.
I said it perfectly.
Well, nowadays you can find it like all through the year, but it shouldn't be. It should only be eaten. Like traditionally, it's only eaten during Lent and towards the end of Lent, I would say. Yeah, in Lent you start finding them, but then towards the end of Lent, and then basically just before, the crucial days. Like you shouldn't, for example, you shouldn't make it like, on the Friday or like.
Okay.
Friday.
Because Good Friday.
Yeah, Good Friday. You shouldn't make them on Good Friday. I've been told of by my mom before for that.
But why Good Friday? Because Good Friday is just for meat, isn't it? So, I mean, this is basically what? Milk, it's bread, cinnamon.
Good Friday is not just meat, it's also fasting.
You fast on Good Friday, okay.
Yeah, so it's, you don't eat in between meals. So I suppose like it's supposed to be nothing too, traditionally I'm talking like Catholics in Spain, they're not supposed to have very much or very rich. So it's not kind of like quite an appropriate type of food that is very like sugary and...
Well, I know it's made with the same consistency, or it's made with the same ingredients as maybe like a bun or something, but like it's baked, you bake it more or less, no?
You fry it.
You fry it, yeah. So, but it is kind of bland. It just, for me, it doesn't fall, except the one you made me 2 years ago.
Of course.
Into the category of something that's kind of rich in flavour. But I guess this is based on the standards of the past, where you couldn't go down to the shop and buy a Mars bar. So this is their...
I think it's the fact that you wouldn't have it for lunch or for dinner or for breakfast. So therefore, like you're eating it in between meals, then that breaks fasting.
And I know, for example, France and Spain, two neighbouring countries, like in New Year's, there's a special kind of cake, for Three Kings, that the French celebrate that as well. And if you find a certain thing in it, you have to pay for it, or you're the king of the kings, or of the cake.
For a day.
Now, obviously, Spain is a Catholic country as well. Ireland is also, but we don't have this. We have Pancake Tuesday. So we do this thing before Lent starts, almost as a way of marking the end of the gluttonous period and it's the start of the fasting period. So, is there an equivalency or an equivalent celebration in Portugal, in France, maybe in Italy, or is this strictly a Spanish Catholic experience, eating these sweet things?
Eating torrijas? Well, I'm sure other countries will have their own desserts, but as far as I know, this is a Spanish sweet.
Okay, very nice. Is it something that is, because you have a niece? How old is she?
Well, I have two nieces.
Yeah.
One is 3 and the other one is 4.
4, okay. So do you imagine that when they're making it for their nieces, it'll still be popular? Is this something that's still like part of this vibrant Spanish life?
It's the sort of thing that grandmothers do, or like mothers do for the whole family. I mean, there's always like, if you speak to people, most of the time somebody says, oh yeah, my mom has made torrijas or my grandma has made torrijas, you know.
Okay.
So, well, in my family, my grandma used to make them, then my mom, and then the last few years I've made them myself.
Okay, very nice. I've also seen my first pointy-headed person. We spoke about this a great deal last year because you learned a little bit about them. But just remind our listeners what's happening with these people in the get-up, in the costume.
Well, it's just this type of hat that points towards the air, and usually foreigners are very freaked out by it because
it's very like, Ku Klux Klan-y, yeah.
It looks like Ku Klux Klan, and actually the idea is kind of like the same. It has the same origin, and you know, it's this idea of like striving to reach heaven. Originally, it's a thing that was worn by prisoners, by like in the Inquisition, the Spanish Inquisition, when they were going to trial them. They just put these pointy hats in them, and that was the intention was like for them to, apart from not, you know, like concealing identity or whatever, like also for the purposes of helping them, you know, achieve sort of virtue, and by pointing them towards heaven.
Okay, was it also a way to rob someone of their identity and make them humble before God or something like this?
Yes, I would say it as well. You know, it's like you're wearing this and the only thing that you have uncovered is your eyes, and so it's kind of like a standardized a way of standardizing everybody, and they all look like criminals, and everybody knows like they are repenting, and then from that comes the idea of people wearing it to signify that they repent from the sins that they've committed during the year. That's the theory.
Of course, it's very nice to watch. I know people who perform in it, who carry the Virgin. One particular gentleman has been carrying it for 15 years, and he says there's a lot of stories that happen within the march itself. So it's a real, again, family. Well, maybe not a family thing, but it's a village thing, it's a city thing.
Yeah.
It's passed from generation to generation. A real community-oriented thing.
Yeah.
Do you know what happens in Ireland?
I don't.
Basically, we do the Passion play. So does that happen in Spain?
Like enacting the Passion?
Basically, yeah. Where Jesus is with the cross, he has to walk through town.
Via Crucis.
And he gets crucified, yeah. So you do that here as well?
Yes.
Yeah.
Via Crucis is called, like the.
Yeah, but when does
the
that?
Way to the cross.
Because like I know certain places could even have like multiple marches with the Virgin, no? Or is it just one passage?
No, I mean they can be different ones, yes, because they have like their own advocations in different churches.
Yeah.
And then there's also the ones where like Christ and the Virgin Mary meet.
Of course. Mm-hmm. Okay. They meet after he's passed on to the next life. It's like a reunion or something.
Well, there are two. I mean, the resurrection processions are not as common. Like I remember we were quite surprised when we moved to Madrid, because in Leon that's a big thing. Like when he resurrects, and then the Virgin Mary goes to meet him. They exist in other places, but also before he gets crucified, there's also, or even while he's crucified, there's also the meeting up to signify when the three Marys went to stand by him.
Okay, and now, what's Easter like now under the regime of Carmena? So for those who don't know, Carmena is the liberal mayor of Madrid. She's been criticised heavily for ruining the illusion, the excitement of children. Couple of Christmases, no, she hasn't used a full tree, or hasn't really garlanded the tree enough in a Christmassy way. This year for the Three Kings, the Three Kings were actually transvestites, no? So,
no, they were.
Or transsexuals, or women.
That was only in like some local.
No, I think the main one in Madrid was.
No, the main one wasn't transvestites.
I think it was.
wasn't for sure. Like,
Okay, well, no, actually, I think it was, but because I know people who maybe I'm wrong, I don't know, but that was a thing. And also last year, the March of the Three Kings were dressed up kind of shabbily like homeless people. We mentioned this on the previous podcast as well. So people feel like she's not treating Christmas as I guess she's coming for criticism for not treating it as enough of a Christian celebration, but also adding modern liberal ideology onto the ways of celebrating it. Has this happened with Easter as well, in your opinion, as far as you can see, or has Easter been left alone because there's not really much you can do with it anyway?
I mean,
Transvestite Virgin.
well, I think there are like there's I believe there's like an alternative parade that goes around, kind of like there are some kind of like profane things, that
Profane, yeah, but it isn't because of Carmina though, is it? Because this is like just because in Spain there's a healthy.
No, this is what I was gonna say. That even like, for example, in Leon, there's like a parade that is like quite profane because it's actually parading a drunk, and that also happens at Easter, and that has quite a few years of tradition. So it's not like, I mean, it in my opinion, it's not all to do with who's in government, but well, the current government just has a policy of like being more neutral. Funnily enough, Spain is in a confessional state. Like it's a non-denominational state. That's the official
status.
So.
Even though I imagine, I don't know. Well, after Easter, there's not really much else apart from San Isidro, which is obviously a big Madrid festival named after a saint, but not really, more a cultural thing than a religious celebration.
Well, Easter to a point is as well. I mean, I don't know, for a lot of people like don't have a connection at all with the religious celebrations and just take it as a holiday, and then other people just like go and see it in a cultural dimension. It doesn't mean anything more for them, but it is true that there are a lot of people that participate in it as much as they do in other like cultural celebrations like Moors and Christians and things like that. That they are really built into the family and into the local tradition, the community. So they basically prepare all year for that moment, even if, well, some of them are certainly very religious, but others not so much.
And what day is Easter this year?
What day? Easter? Good Friday?
No, Easter Sunday.
Oh, Easter Sunday. 1st of April, I think.
When was Easter Sunday last year?
Well, I assume the day before.
Well, the reason I'm asking you these questions is because we've spoken before about the controversy, the polemic of choosing a date for Easter. Do you remember this?
Well, the controversy, I don't know, just like yeah, okay, the tribulations of finding a date for Easter.
So what do you know about this?
What I knew before or what you told me?
Both.
Well, what I knew before is like, well, Easter is just is the only like Christian holiday that has, or Catholic holiday that is determined by the moon rather than having a specific date in the calendar.
Yeah, but
that's why it varies backwards and forwards.
Yeah, but you know as well. Well, do you remember what I told you?
Yes.
What did I tell you?
Well, it was just there was like a certain moment in a certain council where the date that date gets arranged. The idea of that date.
Well, yeah, that's true. Yeah, but the reason I say it's controversial is because it was controversial back in the day. There were several councils to try and decide the actual date of Easter and looking for clues in the Bible to what that day was or should be. And if you celebrate the other day, because back in the past things were more significant, in like now that would be seen as a difference in theology or interpretation, but back then it was a very heathen, heretic thing to do almost, to celebrate Easter on the wrong day. And I guess especially since it was the day that Christ was dying for our sins to be resurrected again, so even more than Christmas, this was the true manifestation of Catholic belief, no? So for that reason, it was very controversial. Now, I've mentioned to you before, and also on this podcast, this book about like millennial beliefs, and not millennials, the teenagers or the 20-somethings, but this kind of overarching philosophy through thousands of years of Christianity, other religions as well, but also philosophy and politics. And in that book, which I've mentioned before as well, Black Mass, it talks about how like the differing ideas of how to honor God and how to bring heaven onto earth, and how to hasten our salvation as humanity. One of the key battlegrounds was the fight over Easter, because if you celebrated Easter on the wrong day, it might offset or delay the deliverance of the return of Christ. And after Jesus died, like everybody's been waiting for that, and then when he didn't come back, it prompted a huge shift in Christianity, philosophy, and ultimately politics as well. So as I've said, we've mentioned that in another podcast, but that's just like a quick synopsis. So this idea of when Easter actually is, now, of course, as you said, it's dictated by the moon. It's dictated by nothing specific really, because it can change. It's on different days every year. But back in the past, hundreds of years ago, it was life and death. It was very profound, and it was a key battleground in the application of the Christian story. So there. So think about that. Food for thought when you're eating your cinnamony, wetty torrijas.
Well done.
So there. No, es brutal. Es brutal. Okay, so that was our Easter chat. We've also been, well, we can't go into too much detail about this because it's a work in progress, but continuing the religious theme, we have been, we are translating prayers, spells, oaths. I don't know what would be the most appropriate word for these texts. What would they be prayers? I wouldn't say so. They're not for.
No,
they're
I
not
would
Christian.
say spell. Well, they are Christian to a point. It's a very peculiar mixture, which now we kind of like, or if you say like in a very strong
Kind
way.
of black magic.
But I mean, now like we reject it, makes us very nervous. But in reality, that's kind of like what would have been a very common mixture in many communities that weren't like fully Christianized, and even some of the ones that were fully.
Well,
Yeah.
I can see what you mean, because, well, let's just set the scene for the listeners. There's this book being published.
Without going into
too much detail. Well, the book's been published. That's I think that's a non-controversial fact,
yeah.
and it has spells, and we're translating them, and they're basically petitions to Saint Death, Santa Muerte, no?
Yes.
Yeah, that's where I'll stop giving information. Okay.
Okay.
So don't look so worried. But now that part I can understand as being a bit, I don't know, for Christians, right? But I haven't come across any so far. Like there's 60 odd. I've only looked at like 20 of them so far. So there's still more translation to do. But I'm kind of surprised by how well they're just things for looking after your health, your family, work, and even petitions like, look after me, but also those who wish me harm, because I don't judge. I don't have the right to judge people, for example. So
Yeah, I haven't got to the other half yet.
okay, so you have examples of curses and things like this, no?
Oh yeah.
Okay, because so far what I've seen is just like protect the family, how to overcome addiction, how to overcome depression. So kind of things that are very relatable in the modern world. But the juicy parts, I imagine, are in your
It
half.
looks like a straw. It shows the straw.
Well, I mentioned to you though that I'll be translating the aphrodisiac one soon. So, you know, I got the saucy one. But what about your one where you've gotten what? I don't know. You tell me.
Oh, just on some of them. I suppose like it could be in the realms of voodoo type thing.
Voodoo.
Yeah, that type thing.
Okay, so I can tell that by your reticence you're not at liberty to divulge more information. But I just thought it was relevant because we've been talking for the last whatever about religion.
Yeah.
And then the Easter break. Now, that's religion. Let's talk about birds. My name is Éine in Irish. Éin is the Irish for bird, so my name is derived from the word for bird, or also prince, and you could even call me the Prince of Birds. I wouldn't mind that. So
I reckon probably nobody's ever come up with that before.
So now, that's why we're actually close to Príncipe Pio, which I like, because it's like Príncipe.
Tweet.
Prince
Tweet.
Prince Tweet, yeah.
Prince Tweet.
So before
You.
social media, and look, I can even see a bird there, alighting upon a fence, minding his own business, moving gingerly along, as we should be doing in this podcast. So, you have been using the Duolingo app to study Irish on and off. More often on, says you.
Oh, come on, like...
I'm joking.
give me a break.
So you've learned vocabulary for the adjectives, also for jobs, of course, professions, but more pertinently, linked to this idea of birds, you've discovered old Irish names, Oscuelga, for birds. So would you care to elaborate and spread the wings of our knowledge?
Okay, so like not on Duolingo where I've been learning Irish, but
I imagine, yeah, it's far too interesting for Duolingo.
But on Twitter where there was a thread by a user called Irish Archaeology who has a lot of nice posts on.
I know you're a keen follower of that page.
Yeah, there are a lot of interesting things because obviously it's archaeology, so it interests me as an archaeologist. But it's got a lot of like nice cultural things about not just the country, but also like the language and other bits and pieces.
Okay.
So definitely very useful. Can see you getting comfortable there. And yes, and it's been having a thread for a couple of weeks, which I thought was really nice, about the names of birds and other animals around the Irish countryside. So even like a pine marten and things like that.
Yeah.
And it was just very interesting because the original names are quite elaborate, like not just straightforward, but they have a certain meaning. Talking about, for example, like I believe it's the red tea that is called the flame of the forest because of its red color.
Yeah.
And other birds are given adjectives like naughty or
Nice.
Or nice.
Checking it twice.
And I mean, like even the ladybird is called something like God's little cow, and
Okay.
one of the last ones I think was the heron, which I believe has the name of one of the names is Long Mary.
Long Mary.
Yeah, which I thought was quite nice. I mean, of course, like this is like the English translation of the Irish name.
Well, it's interesting because I think I was telling you before that the lynx changes its name, because I never knew what the difference between a lynx and a manx was, but it's basically because during the year it changes color, and when it changes color, it becomes a lynx or a manx depending on what color it is. I think if it's more red or redder, it's the lynx. That could be the opposite, and then when it's the other color, when it's not the red, it's a manx or a lynx. It's a 50-50 choice
That
there.
was very enlightening.
But no, it is.
No, it's interesting.
No,
I didn't know.
Well, no, because it's like, because I learned this from a podcast, Blind Boys podcast, Rubber Bandits. He mentioned in that episode of the podcast how he's writing a story about a guy who like has been saving his skin that he sheds off because he's like your body regenerates itself every so often, perhaps a period of every 7 years, and he was trying to like snort that and to relive his past experiences. So I know this is an idea that's very attractive or
Where
very,
was that?
very artistic. Well, he hasn't written it yet, but it's for a second book. I think he's in the process of writing it. But
Right.
like if you're an animal, like, if your antlers like fall off and renew, or if your teeth fall off and they grow back again, and you molt and your hair comes back. These are animals, they're not humans.
This is like a... Alright.
It's that like it's a new you almost, you know. So like, even though this animal, which isn't a fully aware being in terms of like humans are, it has this new personality when it changes depending on time of the year as well. So it's kind of nice. It's a nice concept, I think. And also having, well, he mentioned in another podcast, the gin epidemic had all these mad names. Like a lot of alcohol can be very creative. You know, you have Smirnoff, mad name altogether. And also you have like the gin things like, well, back in the day, like Gentleman's Cap, Women's Garter, I don't know, all these kind of things. So they're very evocative, very kind of artistic, so kind of elevating it a bit above what it was, based, I presumably on the sensations it provoked rather than any kind of overarching marketing plan. And these animals have been given these great artistic names because, of course, back then in songs, particularly in songs and poems and even stories, they would have been protagonists in their own right as well. So not only are they animals, but they have like an almost artistic life unto themselves. Either directly through the stories that are written about them, because they're a very common motif, especially in Irish poetry, in Irish writing, or just as their kind of name, you know. So I think that's a nice discovery that you made about these things. Of the names that you've given us, is there one that you like the most?
Well, I found the ladybird, the goat cow thing quite funny.
Yeah.
Because there wasn't like, you know, such an obvious reason for me to understand that.
Yeah.
Perhaps you can.
No idea. I like Long Mary. Sounds like a Beatles track or something.
Yeah. It's funny because some of them, they sort of like gain their own personality through these names. I think it was a Pie Martin that was called Lady, something Lady. And it's funny when you see the picture, it kind of like the animal kind of looks a bit like,
yeah,
you know,
like it's
classy and
Audrey Hepburn, like.
Yes, I don't know. It's kind of a weird thing to say, but it's like it's the same as when you see a dog and you say, oh, it looks grumpy, or it kind of like, and I think it's a nice thing, you know, that back in the day, like humans observed these traits and
Well, I mean, I guess they were also looking for meaning in lots of things, and it was a very interesting time because we were evolving as such, not, you know, genetically or anything, but just culturally, and coming to grips with our surroundings over a period of a long time. Flame of the Forest is, I think, very nice. It's a very strong name, but also kind of makes me laugh a little bit because obviously Irish forests were prone to great forest fires like in California or Australia, so to call it the Flame of the Fire, I think it makes sense because of the colour, but also it's a little bit interesting because you have to think about why necessarily the flame of the forest. Maybe because they associate it with other things as well, maybe warmth or other life, or I don't know. It's just bold speculation. But I remember when I was younger, my grandmother told me that red robins had a red breast because when Christ was crucified, to make this conversation full circle, they were dabbed by his blood from his wounds because he was pierced by a spear in his side, and also when he was nailed in, I'm sure there was blood as well. So that's where they got their bloody or their red breast, for example. I've never heard it before or since, but that was what my grandmother told me as well. So it seems that sounds like it's in the same league or the same canon of these animals with their names, like Red or Flame of the Forest and Long Mary and the God's Cow. Now, like in Spain, do you know any old names for animals? Like robin in Spanish could be, old Spanish could be, I don't know, Sky's beard or something.
No, it's just red chest. It's literally like ready chest.
Yeah.
But
That does sound very Spanish.
petirrojo, you know, ready chest.
Yeah.
Red chest. But well, I think the interesting thing about this is that perhaps in Spanish, for example, there are names that are the common names that everybody use, but then if you go to rural areas, they will certainly have a name of their own, and I think that's the kind of like name that perhaps has those qualities that has been preserved in Irish as opposed to Spanish, for example.
Yeah.
I think that's what I find so fascinating.
Yeah, because it's hard to know because when these names are being formed, like, I guess they were kept alive in rural areas, but when they were first created, most of the people were living in close relationship to nature, so everybody
Yeah,
would have
of
known it, no?
course.
And then urban centers developed, they lost these names but were maintained.
Well, yes, that's right.
Yeah.
But also they have different names. Like maybe for example in the tweets they gave like 3 or 4 names sometimes depending on the areas, you know.
Yeah.
And then that happens here too. That then people start saying, "Oh, well, in my area this is called this way, or this other way." So yes, originally it would have all belonged to a rural context, but also different things developed in different areas, and consequently were lost in many others. You know?
I was thinking now that the names people give to things are more ironic and bawdy and crude. The Spire in Dublin, which I will see. Excuse me. This is 30x repeating on me. Do you know what the Spire is?
Yeah, you've shown me the building.
Yeah, it's a big, basic heroin needle in the middle of Dublin. So that's what people call it colloquially, or they call it the stiffy in the liffey, for example. So there are several examples of things around Dublin, like the statues of Molly Malone or the Spire, where they have a more colourful local name. So I think we have an example with the names of the birds you've given us of kind of more artistic, philosophical, deeper, or kind of more or richer names given to things. But now we've a overdeveloped sense of satire and irony and taking the piss out of things. So when we give names to things, more often than not, they're inanimate objects or man-made objects, and very often they're not very nice. No.
No, I think that's an important division
Yeah.
between nature, you know, naming things from nature that like pre-exist you,
Yeah.
or things that other people have created. It's always easier to mock things that other humans have created than it is to mock nature.
Yeah, that's very true. Because it's the government, really. No, it's the Dublin City Council, for example, or somebody, the
Yeah, or
powers
a
that
certain
be.
pretentious artist,
Yeah.
or you know,
Yeah.
well, who's gonna laugh at a bird, you know?
I'm trying to think. I don't know. Yeah, like, because you have expressions about animals. Some of them are not very complimentary, but I think it's all based on characteristics that they do have. So
Yeah, but you call people after those animals more than you don't insult the animal itself.
you don't call that pig like a dirty Brian or something.
Exactly. So I think that's probably the key.
Okay. Well, do you have anything more to say about Irish names, birds, anything of this ilk?
No, I think just you're welcome to have a look. It's very interesting for the listeners.
Okay. Well, we shall end it there then. Some business. Find us @LRP1 on Twitter. Instagram, you can find us by searching for LRP Media. LRPmedia.com is our website. You can find us on Audio Boom, Stitcher, Radio Public, iTunes, iHeart, and wherever you get your podcast. Well, if you're listening to this, actually, disregard it. You're already listening to the podcast. So forget that part.
If you want to try any other platform
Yeah.
just to see what it sounds like.
Exactly.
You know that it's any different.
Yeah, it's the same podcast. Where is my mind? So that's the Instagram, the Twitter, the website, on YouTube as well. You can find us by searching Elaborate Media. A lot of new promos going up there for our different projects, and also on Patreon. You can find us at Patreon/Elaborate Media. Please give us some money if you can spare it. If not, no hassle. And have a happy, wonderful Easter wherever you are. Hopefully you're in a country that likes Easter eggs and chocolate. My mother texted me the other day. She said, I bought your Easter egg. I hope I'll give it to you in August because it expires in September.
Oh, no way.
Because I won't see her this time around. I'll be back in the summer, obviously, just before September. So I'll have my Easter egg in August.
You have forgotten by then.
Well, no, I
Not.
won't. No, but she'll have to be half eaten. Knowing her, knowing that woman. She's a great woman, though. Okay, so, well, thank you very much for listening this far to the podcast and all the other episodes. We'll have another new addition to the show next week. So, that's it. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Slán.
Slán